Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Sheets along with BobbyFi, and we're going to be doing a couple of things. We're going to take a we'll take a first look at the NFL slate for this coming weekend. A lot of good spots, I think, and we'll get into that. And we'll also talk about some of the results from the past couple of days. For those of you that didn't see, Bobby and I sort of battled it out a little bit on Monday in the showdown slate. There was a time that Bobby had a lineup that was just sitting in second with only like one or two dupes that, if things go his way, who knows what that could have been. And then on the last drive, I actually snuck up on everybody and ended up chopping the whole thing for 50,000. So both of us both of us played well. Both of us had lineups that were in contention, and in showdown, you just have to kind of leave it to the end, to the NFL showdown gods sometimes and see what happens. So in addition to that, we had NBA opening night last night, and we'll talk about some promo codes we have going on and stuff like that. And what we did say, a couple of things. We said that, it wasn't really technically, although it was technically the first night, really this night is going to be the first night because it'll be a big slate. But I reminded everybody that, that Bobby had incredible success in those in those 2-game slates where no one seems to be ready and prepared. And in the big buy-in, in the 400 on DraftKings, I was looking at my lineup, and I thought my lineup was looking kind of okay with like some stuff to go. And then I was looking, and Bobby had some lineup that was like 70 minutes more than everybody else. He was sitting like fifth. I'm like, okay. And I hated to curse him, but like I looked at the prospects for what was going on, and he also was in that position despite running like shit with Laravia. And like all these guys, and I'm like, dude, you're gonna have to work hard to lose this one. Of course, we knew it was gonna happen. And then what ended up happening was the guys that he didn't have, like Butler and Reeves, started to freaking go ballistic.
Yeah.
And I identified one lineup that I thought could catch him, and that actually wasn't the one that caught him.
Right.
There was a different one that caught him, and I ended up sneaking up into a tie for fourth. So it was a tough route because I knew I really had no chance to win. And I knew that if Reeves and Butler kept going crazy, like it would cost Bobby probably 70,000, so that's what, unfortunately,
it was really Reeves. Reeves scored, I think, 32 fantasy points in the last 8 minutes of the game, with 5 fouls.
That. He had 5 fouls and couldn't make anything going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And then, then he just went off,
But we talked about it on air. I said I talked myself into what I wanted to do. Remember, I said I want to play this Şengün. No one's going to play him.
Yep.
And forget the double overtime. He was there. I mean, he had a monster game before that.
He had 52 in regulation.
No, I think he had a little more than that.
I think 52 in regulation.
Well, obviously the whole thing plays out a little differently because some of the other guys don't get Jabari Smith getting there in the lineup to beat me. Obviously, that doesn't help. But even with the, the double overtime wasn't it wasn't a huge benefit. I got 2 points from Steven Adams in both overtimes, I had a decision to make. I'll just real quickly show this just because I was sort of hemming and hawing over this. I knew I was in good shape after the first games with most things because to have Şengün and Wallace specifically, the 2 sub-10 percenters, and look, I played one lineup. I mean, I did not play anything else. This was just, anything else in this one. This is just one lineup. And I said, okay, Cason Wallace and Şengün as a way to get different. Now, Wallace had 33 in regulation as well. So it wasn't like these things were booming from the overtime. Chet picked it up a little bit, but then he fouled out. By the end, everybody was fouling out, and I'm glad they didn't go to a third overtime. But it was kind of frustrating because it really took this, Reeves, I think, was at like 16 or 17, I think, going into the fourth quarter. They brought him back with 5 fouls, and he just went nuts. And honestly, it was that last steal and then the free throws that nipped me, and I still had chances. Yeah, Kuminga went for a great game, but I think had 1 fantasy point in the fourth quarter. If Kuminga gets 3 fantasy points, I win. What I mean? Like it's just one of those and he was on the court the whole time. So just a little bit frustrating. Look, it's great to win 30,000. I know there's different ways to look at this, but when you really think you've got it.
You were like 70% to win.
I think so. I think maybe right around there. Maybe even it could have even been a little higher potentially. But you know what? It is what it is.
70's a lot. You know what I mean? 70's a lot.
Yeah. No, 70 is a lot. But I looked literally. I had to go down to the top 100 to get. There was only one guy. This guy was 40 points behind me going into in the fourth. But we'll see. Look. it was a good night. I'm very happy about it overall. Just would have liked to have had the extra $70,000. But look, we'll skip past that. We'll get back into NFL. And it really is going to be a first look. I did want to mention we have NBA season going again. So we have our promo code NBA 2526, all caps on the NBA. You can use that effectively now. And we have some awesome packages with our stuff, with Pay Dirts, with SaberSim. All of Sheets' projections and Goldies have been on fire all season. For NFL, we're going to crush this NBA season too. Hopefully you guys will join us and give us a look. I think we have a really, really competitive offering with anybody in the industry. And that's all I'm going to say before we get into breaking down.
I'll go through a couple more things. I mean, why not? So we're also doing some things with State Kings still, and basically just printing money for people over there, honestly. Call it what it is. And we're doing a special thing. I mean, not special thing. I've been having to do this for a long time now. It's the State King stuff is only going to be available to people who are subscribers of TrueDFS. And we're trying to set up technologically like the best way to kind of get that going. I thought it was going to be set up for today, but our tech guy is a little behind getting that set up. So whenever he gets it set up, I'll start posting again. And then we'll kind of get that going, and coordinated with that is I'm going to try to do as many of these live sweat shows as I can, where it's a particularly big slate, either paying a lot or whatever, where I fire it up at like an appropriate time, where there's usually like a half to go or one game to go or something like that, and try to do some kind of combination of like analysis and rooting, and I still have not exactly figured out the right mix of those things. And listen, it's always cool when you yourself have something to sweat. That's easy. That's
and you've had that happen a couple times.
So many times, right?
Yeah.
But that's obviously fun. That content kind of like creates itself. I don't have to worry about that. But I have to worry about how to present it when me myself are not deep in something, which happens like 95% of the time, right? In those things. So I'd like to go through SaberSim and see if I can predict who's going to win, see if I recognize anybody in there, see what we can learn from it. And then, as I also mentioned, typically these things usually happen on Wednesdays, so I can kind of coordinate that, and I maybe do like a live PGA lineup build like at the time, depending on what's going on. Just kind of a time for everybody to hang out and just either tilt or brag or whatever, and me try to like kind of maintain the peace. Hopefully it'll work out. And the first one I'm going to do is tonight. It's going to be 11 o'clock, and that's going to be, at halftime, I guess, of those late games. So it's a good time for me personally. Maybe it's a good time also for whatever. And we'll try to make these. We'll try to do these. Again, you can't do these every night because I have to sleep. But we're gonna try. We're gonna try to keep doing these.
Yeah, and I'll join you tonight just to say, look at you. I like the way you do it and you run your thing, but I'll pop in and just sort of watch and throw in my comments where necessary, because I think you do a really good job of it. I don't know how to do that myself. Like I tried to do a host one on my own one time, like a live sweat. I'm nowhere near as good at it as you are. So I'm happy we're going back to that. So anyway, with all that,
let me share my screen.
I wanted to mention one more thing about the State Kings. I still might occasionally post packages separate. Now, if I do, those are going to be significantly higher. So there'll be a significant savings on my packages that we do on
awesome.
With the passwords. All right. Sheets has got his screen up. We're going to go game by game here. I'm going to take a quick look. I was looking at a different screen, so I'm going to jump in and
look at it from the DraftKings. That's the way I like to look at it, at least the first one. I don't even have my projections up, but I have a good idea of what's gonna look good. But we'll take a look see here. So I mean, I'll just start right off the bat. I mean, first of all, these 1 o'clock games have some freaking action this week. Right on the jump, you have Miami, Atlanta in a dome, with Miami unable to stop anybody. So you got like an immediate possibility for stuff. Okay, and we're gonna start with probably one of the obvious plays on the slate, and that's going to be Bijan Robinson. I mean, if Miami's I will say that Miami's gives the appearance of being a team you could stream running backs against, but as we talked about a little bit yesterday, and Bobby pointed out, they didn't. I mean, while what's his name?
Jenkins.
Yeah, the guy from the Browns did put up 1 billion fantasy points. It was, I don't want to say fraudulent, but it's a little fraudulent. You know what I mean? He only had like 80 yards, and they did stuff him. You know what I mean? Like they did limit him to a certain amount of yards per carry or whatever. And the 3 touchdowns kind of inflated the price. But you got Bijan Robinson, who's like just a freaking insane, so he's going to look good. The only thing that could get in his way is Bobby's man cutting into the workload a little bit. Maybe you get the 2 touchdown troll from Tyler Algier again. I mean, who the hell knows, And then also your other guys from Atlanta. I mean, listen, they're all going to look good here. You could go back to what's his name, who's the tight end on National Tight End Week, and go back to Kyle Pitts Jr. You could play him. And then I was thinking about that something again that you had mentioned. We spoke the other day. Maybe this is going to be the troll week where you run it back with a Malik Washington or something like that. Mm-hmm. And now you're kind of off to the races. So I like this game actually quite a bit. I mean, but like it's more from pieces. Like I don't want to play Penix. You know what I mean? I just more upside quarterbacks. I'm not. Don't really want to play Tua. You know what I mean? You could always play A-Chain. You know what I mean? Like so I think this game right out of the bat has got some action.
Yeah, absolutely. Both these teams have trouble stopping the run overall, even though, like what you said, I just wanted to point it out about Miami, just to sort of play devil's advocate. They actually, on a yards per carry basis, it wasn't like Judkins went crazy. It was 25 for 85. But Bijan is I mean, like what he's doing right now, it's just like fade at your own risk. It's he and Jahmyr Gibbs. But there's a lot of good running backs, but I think he's pretty clearly number one. And I think that A-Chain is a terrific play here. I think that's another one that I'm like, I don't think this is even like okay. I think this is like a really good spot for both running backs. I think you could get frisky. I don't really want to play the passing game. Actually, Atlanta's been very good against the passing game this year, which is a little different for them. But I do think that like getting exposure to Waddle, Washington, and London, who just has all the work over there, I think those are all really reasonable options. So yeah, lots of plays, like you said, probably just not the quarterbacks. And that's a pretty good way to put it.
Okay, so despite him being officially listed as questionable, I think the team the total and the spread is a pretty good indication that Lamar is going to play. So we're at this Baltimore-Chicago game, and last we left Baltimore, they had no Lamar, and they couldn't stop anyone on defense. Okay, now they have Lamar, and they still might not be able to stop anyone on defense, right? Like Lamar coming back doesn't really help their defense. So you're going to have, I think this is probably a 50-point total.
49.5.
Yeah, if not close. So you think that kind of right out of the gate, I mean, you should be able to do some business here. Like Chicago is not exactly the 86 Bears either, with respect to defense. So I think you could just kind of get after this game. Like the first thing is Baltimore was also specifically pretty bad at stopping the run. Well, they were bad at stopping everybody. So I think you can include Swift in that group of decent running backs. The problem with the Swift is that they have other guys that can get carries too.
That Monange was getting a bunch the other day.
Yeah, so I don't know if he's going to make it up to the top tier or whatever. The other thing I will say is that I've had to sweat and anti-sweat the Bears like quite a bit this year, like Survivor and stuff. Unlike a lot I am not at this point a big Caleb Williams guy. I'm just not.
I think it's the general consensus, and the odd part is the numbers look fine. It's just about watching.
I just think he misses a lot of throws. Yep. I just don't. I mean, I don't know where ownership is going to end up going. Maybe it's not. It can't be that popular, I guess. So I would say this game looks to be in play, but I'm not exactly sure how I would play it. I think that although. See, I want to contradict myself a little bit. When I said, okay, Baltimore couldn't stop anybody, why should Lamar being back affect that? I think defenses are funny like that. I think that if you give defenses kind of like a motivation to play better, you know what I mean? I think they might. So I think that Lamar being back, and they're obviously they're in pretty much must-win game every day from now until the end of the season. And the thing is that Baltimore's schedule is really easy, so they can get a lot of these wins. So it's not like they're really going for this. So I think the defense, whoever they have, is going to be juiced up. So I don't know how much I want to play this game really. I don't know. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
I love this game. look, it's pretty wild. It's got to be the first time in NFL history. And maybe it could be wrong, but I can't imagine like a team that's 1-5 against a team that's with a 7.5-point favorite against a team that's 4-2 with a 4-game winning streak. You don't see that very often. And look, it's not just Lamar. They are getting a couple of other pieces back. It's still up in the air a little bit on defense, but I think that this is a spot where you got to just sort of go for it all.
Okay.
I think that first of all, Derrick Henry with Lamar in there at 6K. We mentioned two great running backs on the spend ups with Bijan way up and HN and spending a little bit less up, but still up. Derrick Henry is 6K against a team that doesn't stop the run with Lamar coming back and the rest of the offense sort of, a little healthier. So I'm totally good with the Derrick Henry play. I'm really curious where the ownership ends up on him. As you mentioned, Swift should be mentioned in that conversation as well. I think that the receivers also, I mean, obviously Lamar and Caleb are both in play. But the receivers here, this is like one of the games I want to target. Adunze, DJ Moore, Zay Flowers being the main ones. And then this Andrews and Likely. Now, forget the numbers because Likely came back right as Lamar was like going out. So we don't really know what's happening there. All I can say is Likely's 2,600 and we've seen him have like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns before. and Mark Andrews was once one of and he's 3,600 was one of the great running backs. So I mean, one of the great tight ends for years. So I kind of like just all of the exposure to this game. And I'm going to have to make some cuts somewhere because like you said, there's some games to really like. And so far we've identified 2 of them already.
All right, so Buffalo at Carolina, you have Andy Dalton pitching for Carolina with Bryce Young being out with the high ankle sprain. That's already been factored into the line and things like that. I don't even know how I feel about that. I still think that you can always play that those upside young receivers for Carolina. What's his name? The McMillan. You certainly play him. But I think the real thing is that Buffalo is coming off of either 2 straight losses or at least one, right? They lost to Atlanta, and I think they lost to New England, right?
Oh, yeah, no. Wait, they lost to New England and then Atlanta. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry about that.
Or do they have one in between? I'm not sure. But nonetheless, I mean, this is Buffalo, they're a 7.5-point favorite. So I think that what's probably going to end up happening is they're going to try to cram James Cook, right? I imagine. And so you can include James Cook as one of a bunch of running backs. Now he's 6,700 compared to some of the others. I'm not exactly sure where his ownership's going to come in, but I don't know why I feel this way, but I don't think that Buffalo's going to be able to do that much against Carolina playing that way. I don't know. That's my opinion, and I think that the game could end up being pretty ugly. I think Buffalo will end up winning just because they're better, but I don't think I'm going to play the Buffalo passing game. If anything, maybe I'll play a couple of Carolina receivers, like I said. And I wonder where the ownership is going to come in on Cook. You think Cook's going to be popular? If he's not popular, obviously you have to play him. But what do you think of James Cook? What do you think of this game?
Yeah, Cook's fine to me. I keep repeating this to everybody. Panthers have been way better against the run than people think, and they've been run on a lot because they were down a lot early in the season. The team that's really had trouble between these two teams stopping the run is Buffalo, and Rico Dowdle is 3rd in the league in rushing right now. For what it's worth. Now, the problem is the split carries are there's just too many running backs, but I do think that Dowdle's going to get more of that job going forward. I just don't know if I can pull the trigger on this slate. I also can't find anyone except for Dalton Kincaid if he's available and I think Kincaid is a good play to play with Josh Allen if you were going to go that route. I actually don't mind it. I guess this game is just not quite as interesting for me, but Josh Allen, just on his own, we haven't had Josh Allen and Lamar on some of the main slates lately. This is one time we do, and I think we should probably have some exposure there. That's all I can say. And maybe you play him with Kincaid or nothing.
All right, so I'm going to talk about this Jets Cincinnati game because I have a take. It's not particularly unpopular, but here's my take. So first of all, Cincinnati is, obviously they've been showing sort of signs of life, and they obviously exploded offensively against Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh is not, they're up and down as far as defensively is concerned. Let's just call it that. I mean, sometimes they have good games, sometimes they give up 100 points to the Jets. Whatever.
Mm-hmm. Or
and
the
that,
Bengals.
right? And what's that?
Is that you said they give
up? That's what I was saying. I'm trying.
Yeah.
Their performance last week, and that game really just kind of got out of hand, and we've seen this a million times. Like these teams, all of a sudden, like one can't stop the other, and then the other one can't stop the other, and then it's whoever gets the ball last wins. And it happens more often than not in these stupid AFC Central matchups. Like these. How many times did Cleveland-Pittsburgh, when we think it's going to be 6-3, ends up being like 39-37 back in the day, whatever it is, and that's what ends up happening. So, however, Cincinnati's got freaking serious weapons, okay? And they got something going now, I guess, and they're at home, and they're against a team that is, really threatening to have the towel thrown in, okay, like for them, okay? Now, here's my kind of ball take, my knowledge take or whatever it is. So the part of the ball that's been like relatively decent for the Jets has been the defense, okay? They play Tampa tough. They only gave up so many points to Carolina, they whatever it is. But I will tell you, as I kind of alluded to with the Baltimore thing, the way it is with defenses is that they have pride and they play hard until like they don't, like once they just can sense that no matter what they do, like the team is just never going to win, they just completely give up. And it's only human freaking nature. And with Sauce Gardner likely out also, I mean, I think the Bengals just freaking just torched them. Okay. Not to mention the fact the Jets they're going to be benching Fields. I presume, I don't even know if he's back in, but Garrett Wilson was out last week. I don't know if he's going to be back. He's questionable. I mean, I think that Cincinnati just destroys them. And I think they could put up points in the process. And I don't think it's going to be a particularly difficult take. But I think that I would play all kinds of Bengals.
Yeah, I think everything's in play here. Believe it or not, I think Breece Hall, I think, is one of the best running back options on the slate. Look, it's the Bengals. He had a bad time against Denver and Carolina, who I mentioned. Both those teams are good against the run. This is the worst team against the run in football in Cincinnati, and Breece Hall is 6,100, so he fits the criteria for me. This offense looked much better and much more competent. That doesn't mean much with Tyrod Taylor than it has with Justin Fields. I wish I could find a receiver on Cincinnati I'd want to play. There isn't any, so I have to look at tight end, which means Mason Taylor against the worst team against tight ends in football at 3,500. I think that I like that play. The rookie's he's got some talent. We've seen some big games out of him. He had the big game against Dallas earlier this year. I think with Tyrod Taylor and a somewhat efficient, somewhat capable offense, you could play. I don't know if you want to play Taylor, but you could definitely play. You don't want to play Tyrod Taylor, but you want to play Mason Taylor. That's on the Jets side. I just can't get to a receiver on the Jets that makes any sense unless Garrett Wilson somehow ends up playing, which I don't think is going to happen. On the other side, I just think it's too many good running backs for me to say Chase Brown, but maybe Chase Brown. Again, just game script, or let's just do the thing and play Flacco with Chase or Higgins.
I got a lineup here with all three of them, including Acevius.
yeah, throw Yoshib out. Yeah, why not?
With a Breece Hall run back,
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it, especially for large field. It's not my favorite game,
right,
but I think it's got to be on the list of games that have the potential to be the kind of game where you're like, okay, that game got there in a big way, and that's why so and so won all the money. So I'm kind of into that.
I mean, I can't do a whole lineup here, but again, we only went to a couple of games here, but imagine if you can get away with like this, like Cincinnati with the three receivers, the Breece Hall running back, and play those two studs from Atlanta. Well, we'll call Robinson and Pitts, run that back with the Malik Washington, you still have money to spend. So
yeah.
Well, we'll get to some other games, but I think that out of these first 4 games, I mean, I think you could, there's certainly a lot of action.
Yeah.
As opposed to the San Francisco-Houston thing. So there's one thing that I guess we have to keep an eye on, among others, is that the Nico Collins stuff, right? So he was ruled out when he have a concussion.
We don't know about Collins.
So if he
is
out, if Collins is out, then I mean I would go back to one of those dudes from last week. I mean, he was targeting both Higgins and Noel and some Hutchinson to some degree. Noel was the only one that actually caught anything. So maybe Higgins will catch him tomorrow, next week. Who knows? He was literally just throwing these long fade routes to all these guys, like into Seattle coverage. Like nobody had a shot. But I think that with him out, if Nico's in fact out, I think these guys are too cheap, and you probably have to play one of them. They don't have to, and then like you said, I didn't realize this: the Pearsall possibly being out. I would tell the San Francisco
and Chris Kirk is possibly out for Houston, so which he was out last week too.
Who Chris Kirk?
Which is why all those guys were getting looks.
Yeah.
But he would clearly, if he was in and Collins was out, I think he's clearly the
right.
number one.
Well, obviously, I didn't even think Kirk was okay. So if Kirk's gonna be back, well then
he probably won't be. But I'm just throwing it out there because it's early in the week.
If he is, then he's gonna be huge chalk, isn't he? I mean.
I just don't think any of these guys are going to be that huge a chalk because no one wants to play the worst.
Because everybody saw what Houston could do offensively, which is
it's just a miracle that how about that? How about a slate that we had the other night, Sheets, and he was on your lineup.
Yeah,
where I wasn't Stroud the highest scoring quarterback.
Forget that. Like Seattle did literally everything humanly possible to try to get Houston to score. You know what I mean? Like they kept turning the ball over to them in positive territory. They gave them like first and goals on the 1, like at least seemed like 37 times. Okay. And Houston just could not. They're like, okay, we can't run on them. So you know what we're going to do? We're just going to keep running on them for no reason. You know, and just first down, lost a half yard. So let's do a second yard, lost 3 yards. You know what? It's ridiculous. The chances that I was going to get there with the Stroud to Mark's reception, like at the end, was like almost zero. But nonetheless, I think this game is probably, as it's going to be advertised, like a whole bunch of slog. Houston, listen, one thing Houston did show is incredible tenacity defensively. Okay, which means that
they're a great defensive team.
Yeah, which means like not such a big hurry to play McCaffrey. At 9K.
I don't even see why. Like, I think you just, because of his upside, you kind of have to just have exposure. But like, if he becomes chalky, get the hell out of there.
I mean, to compare, but to me, like comparing Bijan to McCaffrey in that spot, I don't know. It's going to be hard for me to not play Bijan instead, or maybe play them both. Who knows? But
they're just so expensive. There's so many good running backs. Yeah,
that's true. Like A-Chain, for example.
Yeah, A-Chain and Derrick Henry and Breece Hall and against the worst rush defense in football. Like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of spots to look at where do we have to pay the 9K for McCaffrey? Now, it works out enough of the time where I'm not gonna say don't play him, but like if he ends up like 25% owned, I'm pretty sure I'm not going much above like maybe 10% and maybe have him in some of my high buy-ins and double paired up. But I'll probably be under the field on him. I just can't imagine playing him with all these guys we got. Unless he gets some serious value, you can play him with Bijan. Then I'm okay.
Cleveland, New England. I'm out on this one.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell me if you like anything here?
Man coverage for Cleveland and look, Drake May is always in play. Just tremendous rushing upside. Has looked terrific. Is legitimately, I mean, he's on the outskirts of the conversation, but he's legitimately in the MVP conversation.
Sure.
I think that he's just solid enough to where he's the drop down reasonable quarterback. You throw him in there with Stephon Diggs against a good defense, but a team that plays a lot of man coverage and maybe you want to go Booty. I think that's another route you could go, or you could go with our favorite, not our favorite, the guy who helped you out earlier in the season, Hunter Henry. I don't really love any of it, to be honest with you, against Cleveland. I just was throwing it out there because it's always possible. What I do kind of like is if we don't have Njoku going back to Harold Fannin again. That's probably the most interesting thing to me to do in this game. And it's just probably worth mentioning that Judkins, after he basically was, and look, they were running him, with the Wildcat and all that stuff. He was their whole offense. Maybe just taking a reach and just betting on the upside. But again, just too many running backs for me to do it. So probably a game I don't get that much involvement in. But I do think that the tight ends are on both sides are interesting a little bit. And I think Judkins, just because the role seems to be all his, is somewhat interesting.
See, that's the thing. That's the other thing I was going to want to talk to you about is the Judkins thing. You can look at it one of two ways. Number one, the I want to say the fake sharps, but the super sharps, they'll say, you know what, Judkins scored 30 fantasy points, but you know what, he was only 25 for 80. But like, you want to be super sharp, and you say, well, who cares about the 80? You give me 25 rushes.
Yeah, exactly.
You give me 25 rushes, I'll take my chances.
Right, especially when you're running Wildcat. I'm sure they have plays designed where he might throw a touchdown pass too, like in those situations. They ran like 9 times that Wildcat formation.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that they'll probably try to expand on it. And they're not playing for much this season. He's part of their future, so why not let him cut him free? But overall, definitely one of the less interesting games at first glance for me.
Okay. Okay, so Giants, Philly, you have like double revenge for Philly. Like, you have, first of all, they played one of the worst games I've seen them play, like a couple of weeks ago, when they just got rolled, honestly, against the Giants. And Barkley was terrible, like trying to get revenge in New York. So, I mean, I'd love for Barkley to have like one good game ever before I played him at 7,600. But that's something you could talk about. But what I think what's really, the reality here is that you could look at it like, okay, so Barkley's not really been able to run the ball too well, but you know what that means? And you caught on to this last week, and I talked about a couple of weeks before when they were playing Tampa. It's become freaking Hurts season. You know what I mean? It's become Hurts throwing the ball to AJ Brown and to Devontae Smith. And I think you get a steady dose of more of the same, and I'll tell you this, that if, God forbid, Philly gets a lead, you know what they're going to do? They are going to just completely put the accelerator on. There's no way they're going to risk losing a second time to the Giants for openers. And, they're playing well again finally. And I think they have the possibility of putting up a big number here. Now, the Giants, again, that was obviously like next level ridiculous loss last week against Denver. I just can't even imagine how that happened. And so you could look at it a couple of different ways. One is you could say, well, okay, they're going to bounce back from that, but man, they got to be kind of shook. You know what I mean? Like going into Denver and having that kind of 99% chance. Who has a 99% chance to win in Denver ever? Not to mention a team that's 1-4, whatever the hell they were, and to blow that and now have to come into this freaking environment. I think it's rough for the Giants this week, and I think Philly can put up a big freaking number, starting, like I said, with the passing game. So I'll go right back to your dudes, like Hurts and Smith and Brown, and want to throw Goddard in just for funsies, you can do that. The thing about the Giants, which kind of doesn't, I just don't think you can get away with Jackson Dart's kind of just improvising. You know what I mean? He doesn't really have good receivers out there. Wanda Robinson and whatever, they're really not that great. Their best player, well, not the best player, but I love watching Scatterboo. I think he's awesome. Okay. But again, I don't know if I can even get to many of the Giants at all. So I would play those Philly receivers, and you could play the Philly defense actually, honestly, in this spot as well.
Yeah, I really like Philly this week. I like them, I think all of your analysis is I think they could put up a big number here. The Giants after that loss. I don't have any interest in the Giants. If you want to talk me into Jackson Dart, he's shown a ceiling. You're kind of just betting on randomness, and Philadelphia struggled with the run this year. Scatterboo but I mean, honestly, with Tracy back, it didn't exactly look like it's all Scadaboo's job. In fact,
Nope.
I think if you're playing the afternoon slate to get different, I think you can play Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah, it's an early game.
Oh, it's one of the early ones. My fault. Yeah, I don't think I quite have the stomach for that. I thought it was the first afternoon one. My fault.
Yeah.
I thought that they would have pushed it. Yeah, but AJ Brown and Devontae Smith at these prices, certainly, if you want to throw in a little bit of Wandale, I don't really have an issue with it. But hard for me to get to the Giants side. Very easy for me to get to the Philly side. And look, Barkley's going to break out. I was really hoping they would have made him like 6,800, and we could talk about, we could, as you would say, we tell our grandkids about how we played Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley for like 6K, you know,
right.
Which would never, nobody had thought would ever be possible. But I don't think that didn't happen. So at this price, Saquon, even I'm pretty limited on my optimism. Although he's gonna put up like 35 soon. It's just I just don't know when.
Okay, so you can this next game is like kind of annoying. I'll tell you why. It's not that annoying. So first of all, we're gonna probably just rewind my this video for like last week and the week before and the week before that and the week before that, and just kind of replay what I said. But we're gonna do it again. I think the Saints are an amazing play this week. This time you get them at home. They play like a million miles an hour. They go no huddle like every play. They play a zillion plays. And Chris Olave is a freaking monster out there. Not to mention the fact that Rashid Shaheed also has a lot of upside as well. And you have Scadaboo himself at like free at 4,700. And then, of course, you have the other side, and then you have Tampa, where you could just play whatever. I mean, you could play Igbukah at 7K. I mean, with Evans out, I mean, how do you not? You know, so Rashad White, all kinds of stuff. And the New Orleans playing the passing game also flows rather nicely into our nonstop narrative that you don't really want to run against Tampa anyway, you know? So the thing that bothers me, and I have to shout it out because we're just so freaking close, and I watch the show every freaking week for the last like 4 years, or 5 years. I was watching a Swolecast literally on my way over here to work today and listening to it. And it's basically the guest, whoever it was, literally put this exact lineup together in the freaking for like 800,000 people to see. So it's like, so I feel like I'm stealing it, but it's not. It's so you play Scadaboo with Olave with freaking what's his name with Shaheed and then Igbukah. And
wait, who do you mean Scadaboo?
No, not Scadaboo. Olave. It's not Scadaboo. Quarterback, whatever his name is.
Rattler.
Rattler with Olave with Shaheed with Igbukah, or maybe Rashad White and save money, and you're just rolling it up in the dome at 4 o'clock. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I hear you. I like this game a lot. What to do in terms of like how to prioritize it? A little tricky early in the week. Rashad White seems like a very strong play, and I'll tell you what, it is going to be rough sledding because I'm still telling you Taysom Hill's going to have a game at some point, but we have no Kendre Miller now. It seems like if you're going to let, like, I don't know. I'm not on a 10-game slate playing against the Bucs, even though my take turned out to be terrible last week because they got run over by Jahmyr Gibbs.
Whatever.
Just Kamara was popping in my head, but it's probably a little too thin. I like Igbukah. I like Olave. I like Shaheed, like you mentioned. I think if you're playing, you got to get exposure to Tez Johnson. Like, forget just Mike Evans. When Mike Evans was in, they were designing plays for Tez Johnson deep. He's sort of all over the place, and he's now scored. What has he scored? He scored the last 2 weeks. Heavily involved, had 9 targets. If Baker could throw anything downfield, which he has all season until last week, he was horrible. I mean, he was horrendous against Detroit, just missing wide open receivers left and right. I think he was 0 for 9, 20 yards plus, something like that. Just terrible. If he can find once, Tez Johnson might be a really, really good play, and I'm just wondering where the ownership goes. So I'm into that. I'm into all that. I'm into White and the passing games, and I wouldn't cross out. I probably won't play Juwan Johnson, but I think it's reasonable. I think he's on the list actually. So, and then as always, I will get 1% of ownership of my Taysom Hill because when it hits, no one's going to have it.
Right.
I'll at least have 1% of it. but yeah, good game. Lots of upside. It's unfortunate for Mike Evans to be out, but it's probably pretty good for DFS on how to target this game.
Dallas at Denver. If you have it in you, you could play Javonte Williams' revenge going back to Denver.
Yeah,
I don't know if I feel like playing the running back in Denver, especially when Dallas has CeeDee Lamb back and all that stuff. But just want to throw it out there. I guess every week you have to consider whoever is playing against the Cowboys. So Bo Nix, Sutton, Mims, Franklin, just the passing game probably is very, very live. So as much as these 1 o'clock games were good, I mean, listen, there are 10 games, and there are 5 of them, I think, at least, which are really good. And I think this has to be one of them.
Yeah, I'm in Sutton, Mims, Franklin. It seems like another spot we could go back to playing playing the his name stack, the Bo Nix stack. No, the Knicks stack.
Yeah.
And I think Javonte Williams is probably the most logical guy to run it back with. Maybe you could say Jake Ferguson. It's hard with the receivers. This is the best team against the pass in football. CD can always get there. Pickens can always break one. And then you've got the second worst team against the pass in Dallas. So definitely a game that I'll be after. Just not sure. And look, you could just go ham and stack this game. I think it's totally fine. I just think just reminder that they didn't look good last week, but in general, Denver at home, their defense is pretty strong. But I do have this as one of the games to target, and I'm pretty interested in most aspects. Just having a hard time getting to the Lamb Pickens thing against this type of pass defense. But even in this situation, I think Lamb can still potentially get there. So, yeah, an interesting game for sure.
In the last
ugly games, a lot of these games in the afternoon. I mean, I thought we'd get some like good real life games this week, and there aren't that. I mean, I guess the Cowboys Broncos is a pretty good real life game.
No, they're all like 14-point spreads and 7-point spreads.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Speaking of which, you have Indianapolis as a 14-point favorite over Tennessee at home, and I imagine it's well warranted, and I imagine the Colts are going to win by a lot. And I also don't believe that they're going to be forced to put on the pedal in the fourth quarter. Maybe even the third. So I don't know if I don't know if I'm going to be playing Jonathan Taylor at 9,500. That's a lot of wood delay. You gotta run really freaking pure at 9,500.
He's been the best running back in football by a long shot.
Sure, fair enough. But it's 9,500 in a game where it might not be in the fourth quarter. Tyler Warren obviously always looks really good, but I'm just kind of inclined to just let this game beat me, honestly.
I just can't resist. Indianapolis is the best offense in football, and it's not even close. I can't not play these guys in a spot where they're going to put up a ton. So I just have Indy as its own. I don't even need a run back or anything. It's just I like the.
What's the Colts defense? 3,800.
Yeah, Pittman is in a great spot. Taylor's in a great spot, and Tyler Warren it's the one position they kind of do well with, but I still like Tyler Warren. So I'm into it, and I wouldn't even cross off a little bit of Daniel Jones exposure because I think they may put the hammer down. These teams have like a little, if it history, right? A division game and all that. Even if they don't need everybody in the fourth quarter, I think they could have 38 points by then. So those are going to have to come somehow. They're the best scoring team. They're the most efficient team. I mean, honestly, A.D. Mitchell doesn't drop that ball against my Rams, and I think they're undefeated right now. This is a really good football team, and I don't think there's anything about it that's anything but real. They've got me convinced. I would throw some Alec Pierce in there if Downs is unavailable. If Downs is in, I think Downs is interesting. I'm kind of into all of it, but just on the Indy side, I really couldn't find anything. I guess if he's available, Ridley is. I mean, again, Indianapolis, because they're so far ahead of every game, their passing defense looks pretty bad by the numbers, because they're just, teams are throwing the ball like 100% of the time against them. But I can't figure out who I would even want. So I guess Tennessee receivers, I'll just put a question mark next to it for now, because that is a tough one. I think that going back though, I feels like I like the morning slate a little better, but the games I targeted were the Miami, Atlanta, probably the lowest of my high target games. Chicago, Baltimore, I really like that one. I like your Tampa Bay, New Orleans. I like the Dallas, Denver a little bit, and I like an Indy just on like hammer stack. Throw the defense in there. They might win this game like 50-0. Like, they're really good. Yeah, it is pretty wild. There's been 5 games this year, and Jonathan Taylor has scored 3 touchdowns in 3 of them. He leads. That's how come nobody's talking about, like, remember, usually we talk about like last year we talked about Barkley, at least had a conversation about him in the MVP thing, even though he was never going to win it.
Right.
Jonathan Taylor isn't getting that respect a little bit. He leads the league in rushing yards and touchdowns in every single offensive category. Maybe we should be talking about this. And he's always great, and I feel like he always gets overlooked. Anyway, that's what I had as focus. Again, for my receivers, again, at first look, Odunze, I like the Chicago receivers. I like Zay Flowers. I like Olave and Shaheed. I like Buke and Tez Johnson. I like one of the Denvers, Sutton, Mims, maybe even 2 of them, Franklin, Michael Pittman. And then running back, I really think it's going to be a running back in the flex week again. Achane, Bijan, Henry, Hall, Taylor. And then my tight ends that I like the most were Warren, Kincaid, Mason Taylor. And then I'm kind of interested in the Baltimore guys to get different.
Tampa, New Orleans would be my favorite, I think. Then I'm just talking about games. Dallas, Denver, Bengals side, and the Miami, Atlanta game.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoy this. I know most people are going to watch it after the fact because that's sort of the way it goes. But we'll be live 11 a.m. Eastern. I'll let everybody know in the Discord. We've had some pretty good active chats going on just about strategy and how to play. And another reminder to use the code NBA 2526 to join us now. All caps on the NBA. And we think we got the best package in the industry. Our top guys are all crushing it. And hopefully you guys can join us. And if you want to play on Stake Kings, you're going to have to join us. So there it is. Sheets, anything else before we get out of here?
No, we're good.
All right. Good luck to everybody this week, and we'll see you guys Sunday morning for